For me, the epicenter of change will be in the hands of the teachers. And for that change to happen, we have to take care of the well-being needs of the teachers, first and foremost. We're talking of the well-being of the students, but that well-being can only be taken care of only if we focus on teachers' well-being. Really, not just talking about it, really doing something practical about it. So let's tell our teachers, please relax, don't jump onto the learning curve straight away. Take some time out, reflect on to yourself, how can you be best, a little better than what you are right now, and then start figuring out what you want to focus on.
Thank you.
I can jump in there, Ginette, a little bit.
Judy, could I just say, Judy, before you start, Rani has worked miracles, and the meeting is going on without any interruption, just in case anybody didn't see the message in the chat. And hopefully there will be no more hiccups. Thank you. Carry on, please, Julie.
Okay, thank you. So, Andaleeb, that focus that you have on teacher well-being, just thought it would be nice to share with you something that we have piloted, just started to pilot actually, in my school. We are running lunchtime sessions for our teachers. And of course, it's optional. Teachers can choose to join the sessions. And every lunchtime for 20 minutes, the primary section counsellor and myself were offering sessions which one day is about breath work, so supporting emotional regulation, supporting the ability to activate the parasympathetic nervous system through breath work, and teaching techniques to teachers so that they can integrate them for themselves, enabling them then to share that practice with children once children start coming into school, if that need arises. And then on the other day that we work with the teachers, we're doing chair yoga. Seems a bit odd, but chair yoga, we're having to adjust how we work in our classrooms, and children are having fixed seats. So we have giving the teachers an opportunity to come and try out some chair yoga, which of course is not just on the chair, it will be around the chair, next to the chair, behind the chair, but at least the chair becomes the static place. And again, integrating into those sessions a little bit of movement, so that will give brain breaks to the children, movement breaks, but at the same time helping teachers to integrate this if they're interested to, so that they feel comfortable with sharing that practice with the children. And then perhaps one other thing just to mention there is being sensitive to the learning environment. So we're not saying to teachers, stop the class and do these activities, just these are options, these are available. We don't want to interrupt children who are in flow, who are enjoying their learning, who are fully engaged. But if there's a need, if that arises, and when your class is feeling unsettled and things aren't going so well. So giving them a few tools really to work with. So by the end of the 3 weeks, the teachers, if they attend every day, will have had 5 hours of practice. And then obviously, if they're interested to practice further, we'll offer more sessions, but hopefully that will give them a foundation of skills in their toolbox for both breathwork and chair yoga. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Julie. That sounds like an excellent idea. Does anybody else who's had children go back into school already have a similar plan?
Yeah. Sorry, Taruna, please go on.
In fact, I would agree with Ms. Andaleeb, Ms. Julie, and all of the discussions are so meaningful for me. And now I'm reflecting back that there had been, so many issues, not only related to organizational skills, and all these learning needs are important. But one major thing which is impacted is the well-being of the students, and especially when I'm looking into the middle and the senior school, it is more of, body image issues have also started coming in quite often. And it has really created that stigma in their mind. And coming back to school has become a big challenge and raising a lot of anxiety issues. Now, how we are dealing with those issues and along with the teachers, because that is the time as well-being of the teachers is important. Similarly, well-being of the students is important. So what we are doing, we are trying to create, a group of teachers and students together so that they work on certain projects, like maybe students who are interested in art and the teachers who are interested in art. They are having those breaks during, their periods, and they just go and work on those artwork for a while, and they're creating and coming up with something. It helps them to build up their lot of, what you call rapport, as well as that barrier of communication, which has been built up because of this pandemic, that is breaking down. Because ultimately what we were realizing, students who were coming back, they were most of the time, even though they were in the classrooms, they were mostly seen with their gadgets during their free time. So it has broken that barrier as well of, communicating with teachers. So that this really worked well, giving them breaks according to their interests. So sports team, like the teachers who are interested in sports, they get break time or break to play some of the favorite sports along with the students. So this is really working well for both the teachers and students for us.
I would really like to reflect here also, and agree with Taruna regarding the point in terms of student well-being. So one of the practices that I'd really like to share with that, when we have seen the pandemic situation and when the kids are coming back, the well-being program that we have designed for the students in order to integrate with the curriculum as well was very helpful, that the students can have some kind of awareness session about how to cope up with the anxiety, stress, and how to manage their own, self-awareness skills in terms of if they're feeling stressed with some situation. So that was quite helpful in terms of giving some kind of training to the teachers, how to build that communication skills when they are teaching some effective kind of techniques in terms of their English lessons or maths lessons, so how they can integrate the well-being in their lessons as well. So that was quite effective in terms of that the teachers from different subjects, they are going to the classes to talk to the students, not about their subject learning, but also giving them a connection of how to build confidence in themselves in terms of building their strong self-esteem. So that was quite helpful for us. And also, one of the other good practices that I would like to share is that they have the advisory time where the students can come up and they can talk to the teachers, they can talk to the social workers and counselor, which are available around the phases. So they can, whenever they are feeling stressed or they have some concerns they would really like to talk about, that was really helpful in terms of embedding the well-being in the curriculum, was quite helpful in terms of supporting the students' needs, not only the students' needs of the special education, but also the students who are struggling with some social and emotional needs. So that was quite helpful part at our end. Thank you.
Thanks, Rahima. Hashi, did you want to add to that?
Yes, thank you, Ginette. So I completely agree with Mr. Andaleeb that, have I pronounced your name correctly, Mr. Andaleeb?
We're pretty close.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Andaleeb. Okay, right. Andaleeb. So teacher wellness is very, very important. And last year, just because of the pandemic and the things going around, we have created a teacher wellness council. And like Julie said, we included not only chair yoga, we also introduced the eye movement exercise across the school for the students and for the teachers. So the timetable was staggered down and divided in a way where after every period, there was a break for everyone, because we saw that the teachers specifically were having a lot of difficulty with eye problems and a lot of other things were popping up. So that helped us, the staggered timetable, to reduce that. That's the thing. The another thing which we started this year was restorative practices. We have slotted a day in a week every Wednesday, circle time, across the school from grade 1 to grade 12, where all the children are going to have a circle time and they are going to share one good moment of their life and one moment where they had a struggle. So they sit in a circle. Certainly, we are maintaining the social distancing. So they can't hold their hands, but yes, they're sitting in the circle and they're discussing what they have gone through. One topic is being raised and they discuss that. So this has been 3 weeks. We have been practicing restorative practices and we have realized the connection between the students and they feel more connected to each other because now they know their strengths, and they also know the areas where the child was struggling. So we have not only picked up the areas where the struggle was, but also the strengths. I think that has helped us a lot to maintain it and reduce the anxiety when the children came to know that it's not only me who is having this anxiety. It's not only me who is having this difficulty to cope up with this. There are others also who are having this difficulty. And believe me, it has worked really well. And not only with the students, even with the teachers, there was more connection among each another. You feel more close to them. You feel that you know them better. And there was a more socio-emotional connection. Thank you.
I love that you included the good moments as well. There's been so much negative to focus on that we sometimes forget how much good is going on and how much good practice, and also how much there is still to appreciate and enjoy. And, you know, there's a lot of research coming out from positive psychology now into, and we've seen it everywhere, I know, the importance of giving and feeling gratitude each day, and the positive impact that has on well-being. So I'm definitely going to think about that circle time. Thank you, Pashu.
Yes. And Julie, I must say this, I must add this, that I think this is the time where the students have developed neuroplasticity. They were more resilient. It's let's not look only into the negatives, whatever has happened. There are plenty of positive aspects also. I know a lot of my students who were struggling with learning and with writing specifically. A lot of my students who find it very, very difficult to express and to write, they did very well during the assessments, only because of this, that the pattern of assessment has been changed across. So first point was this, that they never felt excluded, because like when you are giving accommodation to a child, especially in the middle and a senior school, the children are sometimes not ready for that accommodation and for that adaptation. So we are Indian school, PYP and IB in the senior school. So you see, they felt more integrated because they saw that it's not only me who is using a calculator, it's not only me who is using or who is typing the answers, it's everyone who is doing it. So that really helped to increase their confidence level also. So there were different cohorts of students with the different areas of difficulty, and certainly there was a lot of positive outcome also. I think it's time to think for everyone to change our pedagogical practices. That are we going to continue with the same old pedagogical practice, or is it time for all of us to consider and start changing and evolve with time?
Thank you, Pashu. Could I just, changing the subject a little bit, as one of the things, Aisling, that I know you wanted to talk about, which is a daily experience in my school at the minute. We actually have some classes closed because of a resurgence of COVID cases. And one of the points I know that you made is how does it work when we talk about children coming back to school like that's something that's definite and it happens and it's unchanging. And in fact, the reality has been very different, that it feels that despite the fact that cases in our area are going down, that actually it's unpredictable. And next thing you know, you've suddenly got a child who at a moment's notice, I mean, sometimes literally we've been turning children away at the door saying, sorry, your class is closed, you need to go back home, we're going to bring your mum, and she's got to take you back away again. So sometimes children who need consistency and routine are not having it. And then they're having to go back to learning online at very short notice. And in the case of our secondary department, they've been online from Sunday until tomorrow. They're not back in until Thursday. So Aisling, how is that looking like in your school?
Yeah, we, especially in year one, where the students don't need to wear the masks, because obviously for students who are age 6 and upward, they do need to wear masks. But we're finding that we've had a few classes closed in the last kind of fortnight. And to give you an example, I've had a child join the academy with autism. He wasn't keen to leave his mum, and we worked towards getting him into school. He managed to do maybe an hour the first few days, and we gradually built that time up that he was spending in school. And he finally did his first full day, and then the school went remote because the class was closed. So it's going back to what you said, that sense of stability for the children. And it must be so hard to comprehend that, you know, just when he was getting used to the new environment, the teacher, the LSA, suddenly now he's back at home, and it's almost like starting off from square one again. I think we need to be utilising, again, it comes back to like social stories, understanding what COVID-19 is without making it sound like a big scary thing, which it is even for us as adults to comprehend at times. I think rather than, but like, we need to acknowledge it, and when children come back, explain, okay, we were at home last week, explaining why. I love the idea of circle times that a few of you have mentioned, and kind of giving the children that chance to just speak and practice those skills of listening to other children's experiences, extending circle times to just share experiences and reestablish those skills of turn taking, listening, concentrating, and things like that. I don't have the exact answers. I just think as teachers, we need to be allowing that time within the timetable to acknowledge what's happening in the world around us.
Lubna, can I ask you to step in there? Because I know that you are interested in the ways that pupils have the opportunity to share their experiences and what they think about what's going on and how they're dealing with it.
Yeah. So, you know, in terms of pupil voice, obviously it needs to be a meaningful conversation that you have. And just as you've said, we need to listen. That's the biggest thing. And you're right. We need to acknowledge what has happened. There's the obvious way, student council, there's circle time, there's mindfulness, which very rightly so should be added into the timetable. And I know that the timetables are very crowded with the sheer number of subjects you have to do here in Dubai. But still, if you change, so what we've done in our school is we've adapted in secondary, we've changed the length of the periods now a little bit. Tutor time is really important now. So you can find those sort of odd moments. It doesn't need to be a whole long lesson. I think sometimes just adding a touch here and a touch there is really useful. A quick example from what we did at work is that we had conversation starters, a bit like circle time, but you know, when you have that, even in adult life, where you have that hesitation to initiate the conversation. So we have conversation starters, and what we do is they are open-ended questions. What they help us to do is to dig a little bit deeper under the surface as well, and you can then differentiate them. So to give you an example of how we did that at work is for the younger children, we asked them to come up with alternatives for a handshake, for hugs, and for high fives. So that was really nice how different children sort of how their perceptions came out and how they felt, because then, of course, we are giving value to their suggestions, because then we can use what they have suggested in the everyday school routine. So that was for the younger ones. For the older ones, we could give them a quote. There was a really nice quote. You can pick any quote, but there was a nice quote that we gave to our sixth formers, and it was Martin Luther King, and it was, "Everything that is done in the world is done by hope." And then you send them off and they have a discussion as well. So certainly acknowledging the conflict that has happened in our lives, the trauma. A lot of people have come back with a sense of loss. There's a loss of routine. There's a loss of relatives. So acknowledging all of that, and as you have all said, at the same time, giving them that hope as well.
Thank you, Lubna. Did anybody just step in and comment on that one?
If I may add one more thing onto this discussion, onto this part of this 360 degree of the stakeholders, the most important stakeholder is the students themselves. And largely, we're just focusing on working for them. But there could be turnaround completely if we start working with them. And this is what we've been doing, and we've been experimenting through various initiatives of ours at our school. And one of which, especially, which I'm really happy to share with here, is the Wellbeing Initiative led by the student leaders in our senior section. Mm-hmm. Amazing turnaround. They are acting as well-being coaches to their peer students. So these are nuggets of things which we can take up and make those very people whom we are working for as the real resources. And it is really turning around for us.
Thank you. It sounds like they've been the heroes in your school.
Yeah. In fact, I would like to add up with Mr. Andaleeb's and Lubna's points also. In fact, we have something similar to that as Wellbeing Cafe, where we actually give some kind of stories, one just 20 hours before the session, where all the students from different sections are given one story to reflect upon. And then they come back and reflect their own opinions, share their own opinions and facts. And it's totally student-led. They just share whatever is there in their mind openly. And it's not led by anyone else. We are just the viewers. And even the parents are given that chance in the similar kind of way. And teachers, so it is run for different groups, cohorts. It's parents, students, and teachers. For all the three stakeholders, it's been conducted. And the pattern remains the same, but definitely the story are different according to, different to understand their perspectives. And when the parents are doing, the students are listening. And if the students are doing, the parents are listening. So it's like that. So everyone gets to hear and all of them are together, working together, and they try to understand through that platform.
Thank you, Taruna. We have around 10 minutes left. There's a couple of points left to discuss. And just to let you know that at the end of the session at 6:30, then Khail is also with us, and she's going to be talking about how we could be involved in the Special Olympics. So just before we get into Khail's point, she's going to share with us some of her ideas and things that we can get involved with. A couple of our special guests this evening had a few questions that they wanted to discuss around interventions and resources that are particularly useful to help the students that we've got coming back to school at this time. Who'd like to start us off on that one? Nadine, I can see you nodding, and Lubna as well. Lubna, would you like to go first?
Right, so very quickly, I've got the good old social stories. I don't know if this might look familiar, but there's a website called Little Learners. They have a vast range of social stories, which are absolutely brilliant. The imagery might be a little bit childish, but they're very clear. So if you have a chance, do have a look. They cover absolutely everything. But they also, when you see a resource, you can also think, well, I can adapt that, and you can personalize it. You can make it your own. We also had, this is our memory jar, a bit like, when you have a worry jar, but this was a positive one. So you had my favorite moment with my family, and then you lift the flap up, and then you can do your writing, or you can do a little picture. The funniest moment, the best things I've learned, again, just to give a positive touch to the experience. We had a post-lockdown back to school checklist, which we gave to the children because we were talking about establishing a routine again. So re-establishing a routine, because a lot of times you had to rebuild those relationships, and the children had to relearn things that they had forgotten. Very quick example is that our secondary school children, our year 7s especially, of course, when you're in year 7, there's a lot more movement involved. So just simply walking down the corridor in a post-COVID sort of school is the social distancing. So I'm sure many schools have put those arrows on the floor, which the children then tend to ignore because they're so busy in conversation. So those sort of kind of things, so re-establishing those routines as well, and just reminding children that there are visual clues as to what the expectation is. Also, we gave our teachers, I'll show you really quickly, but I won't go through it. But what we produced is a checklist for teachers, just a quick strategy check. So this column is identifying the problem. Then we had a column for what have you tried in terms of quality first teaching. Then we had the small steps, sort of like a SMART target, and then we had the resources. Just so it's something that is on hand that people can quickly refer to. So there are a range of sort of different things. We had something called a coping toolkit as well, to which everybody contributed. And that was a really good, we created an anthology of good practice in terms of reintegration. That's me done.
Thank you, Lubna. Somebody else like to step in?
Just a quick one, really. I was just wondering if any other schools are using the Leuven scales. I think that's how you pronounce it. This is something and involvement. So I should just state that we're still online, by the way. We haven't been back to school yet, so we're still waiting to come into school. So, but we have used this in school and online. And just using this scale helps us if we are feeling alerted to a child, and then it might help to open a conversation with parents again. And we use it for children new to school, for settling in, for this online behavior that we're monitoring, checking in on learning, etc. So that's quite a useful resource that we found for well-being and involvement.
And is that something that's available free of charge, Julie?
I believe it is free of charge. I have not downloaded it myself, but the head of early years did. And she presented this, all her team use this scale. It's used, everybody's familiar with it, everybody understands it. And one of the points that she said for involvement, that the highest point on the scale is 5. So one of the aspects of being at level 5 is creativity. And to be graded or seen at that level, you want to be seeing creative involvement, creative ideas, creative productions. So it's quite an interesting scale to use. It's very simple, very straightforward. I've seen it used particularly for children on our register of high concern, and teachers will be tracking daily when that happens, and then I will get a daily report with the head of early years as well. And that daily report, it will include their observations as well as where the child is on the scale. So I hope that's helpful to some people out there.
Thank you, because I know that I think especially if you follow UK education news, when school closures are, I think, perhaps more erratic than they've been for us, certainly in Dubai, there was a lot of talk about catching up and not putting an emotional pressure on the children to feel like, because of circumstances completely beyond their control, that they were behind and they weren't as good as they used to be and they needed to catch up. And it was very much about changing the narrative around that. You know, it was nothing that they had any control over, and that they had continued to do their best. And I'm sure something like that would be useful if that's a concern for the pupils in your school. I know, Julie, in Saudi Arabia, are in a slightly unique position compared to many of the UAE schools, in that none of your children have yet been back to school.
Yes, that's right. And we're in the process of planning for their return. So it's really helpful to listen to everybody's ideas today, actually. Thank you.
So just to wrap up, as we have a few minutes left, is there something to think, if there's helping Julie and others perhaps who are in that situation, if you can think about, is there one thing that really stood out for you that made a difference to your children as they return to online learning? There's a challenge for you. Ashu, have you got an idea?
Sorry, I lost the connect. Could you please repeat?
If you could just name one thing, just to wrap up, so is there one thing that you said that was one thing that certainly stands out for you as something that really made a difference for the children as they return to in-person learning?
I think they have become more resilient and perseverant. The children, they have really surprised us the way they have circumnavigated the whole during the pandemic, how to go through teams and things like that. That has really helped. That's one thing. Just adding to the previous thing which we were discussing, I just wanted to add one thing there about the interventional resources, which has worked very well with us, was mentoring. So mentoring by senior student to junior students has helped a lot. During the pandemic and even after that, even now currently, though we are on site, senior students were mentoring their juniors. So that has helped a lot to students because they were able to connect with each other much more. And they could understand that, yes, their anxiety is not only limited to them, it is all over across. Mm-hmm. So it only didn't help for teaching and learning, but also to understand and make that social emotional connect.
Thank you. Anybody else want to come in on that one?
I just wanted to mention that with regard to students returning to school, it was just so lovely to see how happy the children were. They were beaming to be back at school. I think it just gives children a new sense of appreciation for school. The children who perhaps previously might not have been as enthusiastic about it were just so delighted to be back, so delighted to have that interaction and just really appreciate it. And I think, Julie, you'll see that with the students returning to school, and it's such a lovely thing to witness.
Mm-hmm. I'd say in my school, we've restarted swimming this week for the first time since we closed for COVID in March 2020. And there is not a day that goes by that I'm not walking down the corridor and somebody stops me and goes, "We've got swimming today." Like it's the best thing that ever happened. And we know that they've spent probably the summer in swimming pools and they've been to the beach. But swimming at school is something that they've really missed. They are so excited that I think, again, for them, this is one of those things that says, yes, we are getting back to normal.
I think same here. Students are super excited for swimming. Super duper excited.
Thanks, everybody, for all of your contributions today, and especially for our special guests who've joined us for this theme around returning to school after online learning. So I'd like to bring in Khail from the Special Olympics here. And Khail, perhaps could you start by introducing yourself to us and telling us about your role?
Yes, my name is Khail Barley, and I am the head of initiatives at Special Olympics UAE. And really very delighted that you all allowed us to come and listen in, as well as share with you a little bit of information about what we are doing. So I'll keep it really, really brief because I know your time is very valuable. But one of the programs under the Initiatives Department is a program called the Unified Champion School Program, which was originally launched in the United States about 10 or 11 years ago. And is now found in countries, across the world. There's been quite a lot of evidence about just the positive impact that the program has on schools. And what it really is a sort of a comprehensive program that supports the creation of really a holistic inclusive environment within schools. Through engagement in unified sports, engaging inclusive youth leadership, and getting the whole school involved. So this year, we've had the program in the UAE since 2019. And many of you may have remembered the 2019 Special Olympic World Games. And at that time, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed announced that he wanted all of the government schools and 75% of the private schools to be unified champion schools to ensure that, the youth across the UAE would grow up in really an inclusive manner. And we've worked with schools over the last 2 years and learned a lot. We learned a lot about the needs of the schools. And what we tried to do during COVID was to really take those learnings and relaunch the program this year in response to what we learned from schools. So what we've done is developed some programming that is led by more programming, that is led by Special Olympics, so that schools who, really are struggling or don't feel like they have the bandwidth to be creative can kind of plug in to some of these programs, sports and leadership, robotics and such. We have virtual options and in-person options. We also have really streamlined our communication, monthly meetings that really cover all of the topics that are pertinent, as well as some professional development, so training. So what we found was there were a lot of teachers, I'm sure no one in this group, but a lot of teachers outside of inclusion departments that really wanted to get involved and they really wanted to be inclusive, but they weren't quite sure what that meant. And or they were quite hesitant because they didn't feel like they had the skills necessary to engage students of determination. So we've really worked on creating trainings that are very accessible to staff across the school to directly support their engagement in some in the Unified Champion School programs. So what I'm really here to say today is that we are here really to support schools in their journey toward inclusion. We have a guidebook this year that's, again, quite comprehensive. But again, the program is very flexible to the needs of the school. And what we would love is to hear from you. If you even want to you can simply put your email address in the chat box right now. And what we'll do is send out the guidebook to you, as well as have someone contact you so that we can discuss the program more if that's something that you're interested in doing at this time or any time in the future. But we would really like to connect with as many schools as possible, so that we can support you in all the work that you're doing. So thank you very much for the time, and please feel free to put your emails in, and then someone will be in contact with you, and we'll send you the guidebook, and hopefully be able to connect in the very near future. So thank you again for having us. And, good night.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.